Record. Welcome to the Connected Networker. My name is Barry Copeless. I'm the host and producer of the show, which talks to authors, influencers, networking organizations, and CEOs. Today, we have a very special guest, Lydia Hall, which is an editor, and she does a lot of writing stuff. And I'm just going to read a little bit about her bio now. Okay, Lydia Hall advises clients on communications and policy, helping people and organizations effectively and authentically tell their stories to the world. Some of her recent projects include helping nonprofit clients win life-changing grants from prestigious foundations, editing an acclaimed book on women's leadership, and providing recommendations for the development of diversity and inclusion initiatives. Having worked on federal education policy and as a teacher and tutor, Lydia is particularly passionate about expanding students' access to high-quality educational opportunities. A veteran of the nonprofit sector, Capitol Hill and K Street, Lydia received an MA in Sociology and Education from Teachers College, Columbia University, and a Bachelor of Arts cum laude from Tufts University. In her free time, she serves on the board of Team Fox DC and the educational tech company Emerging Rule, and as an alumni interview for Tufts. Lydia is based in Washington, D.C. Well, welcome, Lydia, to my talk show here.
Thank you.
So can you tell us, first of all, how you got involved in the writing career?
Sure. I've loved writing ever since I was a kid, honestly. I was always writing books in my spare time, kind of ridiculous plot lines looking back on them. You could tell I was heavily inspired by the books that I was reading. Like I was really into the Little House on the Prairie books, for example. And so I wrote my own prairie stories, but they also had weird elements. Like one of the girls lived in Nebraska, but she had a pet penguin, but it was the 1800s and kind of illogical, but I was a child, so I suppose, give myself a pass for that one. um, but yeah, I always loved writing, and I knew that I was good at it. And um I so after I finished college, I worked in lobbying, as my bio sort of indicated. I did a lot of work for nonprofit clients, kind of helping them tell their stories. And I realized that so in most of the cases, the people we were working with were companies and organizations that were entering the advocacy space for the first time. And obviously, especially here in the US, lobbying is kind of a dirty word, and people don't love to, it's just not a word that has the most favorable associations. But what we were doing with these people was helping them bring their messages to Capitol Hill. Most of these were disease specific organizations that were trying to get additional funding to do research into these diseases that were impacting millions of people every year, or rarer diseases that just had not gotten the kinds of research funding that they needed and deserved. And so we were helping these organizations find the best way possible to bring their message to lawmakers. And a lot of times the people we were working with were scientists and researchers who were brilliant people and were doing amazing work, but they didn't really know how to convey, like especially efficiently convey what they were doing in a way that appealed and interested and grabbed the attention of busy lawmakers who, like, one thing about lawmakers here in the US, they are incredibly busy and overscheduled, and as are their staffers. And so they don't have a ton of time to read material that you give them or to hear from you. And so what I realized enjoyed helping these clients do was helping them frame their message and basically take the essence of what they were doing and help create the kind of message that would appeal to busy people and would help them get the results that they needed. So after that, I ended up going to grad school at Columbia in New York. And I did that because I'd been doing some tutoring work and became really interested in education policy and wanted to see what I could do to kind of help improve the American education system for the better. It's obviously a tall order, but as a volunteer tutor working with the organization that I was working with in DC, I saw the benefit that dedicated adults who take a holistic approach to education can really make in the lives of kids. And so I ended up going to grad school and loved that. I had the privilege of working with some professors who are really at the forefront of their field, of the field of sociology and education. And editing actually is something that I got into when I was in grad school. So I was living in New York City, and I'd worked before I went to grad school, but I burned through my money quite quickly because New York is expensive and I was a broke grad student. Very cliche, typical, but I mean, it is what it is. And so I was looking for ways to make money while I was in school that would kind of allow me to balance work and to balance work and school the best that I could. And so I put an ad for my editing services on the school's intranet site, and ended up getting a pretty good response. A lot of my fellow students were looking for help editing papers. And so I began doing more of that. And I found a lot of the people who I worked with, probably 9 out of 10 of the people I was working with, were people who were international students, people whose first language was not English. And I got really, I got very comfortable doing that kind of work. What I found with these students is obviously they were brilliant, but they were still getting used to writing in academic English, which is not easy even for native English speakers. And so I got very used to doing that kind of work. I kind of developed a knack for knowing what people were trying to say and helping them say it in the best way possible, while also, and this is incredibly important, preserving their voice. What with like academic policies on academic dishonesty, as well as just integrity of both editors and authors. I'm extremely committed to preserving the voice of the author themselves, and not I I don't see myself as a co-author when I'm editing somebody's work. I am their editor. I am helping them say things in the best way possible. And it is their work, not mine. I'll make suggestions. I will encourage them to expand on something. But I don't add new content. I don't delete substantial amounts of content. I'm really committed to helping them like continue to tell their own story. And so yeah, so I did that for like the second half of the time that I was in grad school, and actually continued doing it after I graduated. And even after I moved back to DC and I took a job on Capitol Hill for a few years, I still continued to do editing work on this side because people would ask me for help. A lot of times I found I was getting a lot of referrals through word of mouth. And I kept it up, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed making a little bit of extra money, but again, it was very rewarding work. And there are people who I worked with over the course of multiple years. Like there are some people I've been working with for nearly a decade now, actually. And I've seen them just continue to grow as writers. And I love that. That's probably my favorite part of the work that I do, is just seeing people become better writers, learn how to use their words in the best way possible. So yeah, I would say that's probably how I got into doing that kind of work.
And how did you get interested in editing books that are published on Amazon? That was a big change too, I guess.
Actually, it just happened that one of the projects somebody came to me with was going to be published on Amazon. It was something that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but a woman who I'd worked with on, I believe I worked with her first on like a paper that she was doing for grad school. She came to me a little bit later and said that she was writing a book and that she was going to be publishing it on Amazon. And this was back in 2014. And it had been it was the first time I think that was the first full-length book that I'd worked with somebody on, although I'd also worked with people on dissertations. So I was used to like working with bigger documents, but I think that was the first book that I worked on. And so we ended up kind of working together on that. And it obviously, when you're working on a book, it is, it's a longer piece of work. It's different from like working with somebody on like a 10, 20, 30 page paper. um but it's a similar sort of skill set. And I was so excited and happy for this author when, you know and she said the same thing herself, like seeing her book in print, like for her to hold the book in her hand was incredibly rewarding, and I was so happy for her, and I was really happy and excited that I was able to help her get to that place. But yeah, I mean, she did a wonderful job.
So that was a business topic. Would you say you edit all kinds of books, or do you like focus on specific niche markets when you're
Um,
editing books?
Honestly, I edit a little bit of everything. It has happened that most of the books that I've edited have been kind of business related topics, kind of like coaching, networking, that kind of thing. But I've actually edited fictional books as well. I even edited a book of poetry, which was definitely a different, a different animal altogether. But I've done a little of this, a little of that, but I would say mostly nonfiction.
And I take it that the book you did edit for the lady from Amazon that became a bestseller.
I was on one of their lists. I forget which one. It did sell well, and she got really wonderful feedback for it, as which she deserved. She's incredibly talented, and as are all the authors I've worked with. And it's a huge honor to be entrusted with that kind of work.
And I noticed that you do a lot of networking at different networking events online so that you get the word out that I'm an editor, and if you need some work done, I can help you out.
Absolutely. I mean, I live in Washington D.C., and DC is a networking town. And so pre-pandemic, and obviously it's, we've gotten sort of back to this. Pre-pandemic, I went to a lot of networking events in the evenings, and even just events that weren't necessarily networking events, but because it's DC, networking will happen there just inevitably. But during the pandemic, and as somebody who actually worked remotely before the pandemic, I've appreciated the fact that it's kind of continued. I've done a number of online networking events. Especially last year, I would say I did more than I have been this year. But network after work, for example, and other online events where you can come and meet, hopefully meet like-minded people. Obviously, that's where we connected for the first time, which was awesome. And then I also just I post my ad on the Columbia intranet site, and I get responses that way, and also just word of mouth. I love word of mouth. And it's always really gratifying when somebody who I've worked with offers to help connect me to other people. It's just really wonderful, and I love when people are able to do that. And so yeah, a lot of it has happened that way. Obviously always looking for more. um and yeah, so it's online networking has definitely been one of the I feel uncomfortable saying like silver linings of the pandemic, but it is sort of the case. I would say it's been one of the best things, one of the better things about these past couple of years has been, I think, people recognizing that you can be incredibly productive and make a number of connections and just do really good work when you're not in a traditional office. Um, I love that people recognize that now, and I do hope that these online events continue for sure.
And when you're editing books, do you have a sort of an idea what kind of size of book you want to edit? Like, would you edit a 2,000 word book, or do you sort of stick to the smaller books?
Oh no, I mean, the books that I edit are again all lengths, and I'm comfortable working with really any length of book. I think the longest book that I ever edited, well, it was a dissertation, and it was like 500, 600 pages. The books that I've edited, yeah, the books that I've edited tend to be on the longer side. And honestly, I'm comfortable with it. Obviously, it's a lot of work. And it tends to be the kind of thing where you go through it multiple times, and it's not like you just go through it once. It's very much like it's a longer process, but um one of the great things about longer books is that you have more, authors allow themselves more time and space to say as much as they want or need to say about a given topic. And um just as with shorter pieces of work, the objective is always the same. Like I want to make sure that they are doing throughout the book what they promised to do in the introduction, that they're following through on to completion all the threads that they began in the beginning, that the different pieces of the book kind of tie together in a coherent way. Yeah, it's more work, but I'm happy to edit a book of any length.
And what about if the book is very technical in nature? Say it was a medical book or with high technicality terminology and words. Is that harder to edit if it's some industry you don't understand very well?
I mean, it is, it just often requires a little bit more work on my part to make sure that I understand some of what they're discussing. Like I've done sort of more technical editing in the past. I've done some work on federal contract proposals, and a lot of times that work is more technical in nature. It's, there are terms that I don't necessarily understand, but that's where Google is my best friend, and I look at you know I look it up and make sure that I have a baseline understanding of what I'm editing. And but in those cases, I always make sure that the focus is on how well the sentences flow, whether the grammar is correct, and the technical jargon is sort of less of my focus there. But yeah, I'm comfortable editing. Always comfortable kind of learning new terms and phrases to do my work.
So, in the final couple of minutes we have left, can you give any quick tips on if somebody's going to send a book to you for editing, what your expectations are of the book or the
So
manuscript?
honestly, I'm comfortable working with books at kind of all stages of the process. One thing I always like to do though is to have like an introductory conversation, just as you and I did, um, before somebody sends me something, to kind of learn more about what they're trying to do. Um, and ideally, I do like looking at books that have like at least kind of a beginning, middle, and end. But I'm comfortable also with parts where and I know you and I did this when we were working together. There were parts where I suggested, I would love it if you added more to this section. I think people would love to learn more about this. So, do a little bit more writing here, and then we can go from there. But I'm comfortable really editing work at all phases, but I like to have an idea of what the author is aiming to do. Like, what is your goal in writing this book? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to share with people? How are you trying to help them? um and so for me, that's really the most important thing. And Yeah, so that's ideal.
Okay, we have about 30 seconds left. So if people want to contact you, how do they get a hold of you if they want to use your editing services?
So you can go to my website, and it's lydiafhall.com, lydiafhall.com. And I have a web form there. And yeah, you can also find me on LinkedIn, Lydia F. Hall. Um, and yeah, I mean, I would absolutely love to find more work. Always happy to help more people. So yeah, contact me through my website, and I'm happy to help you.
Okay, I want to thank you very much, Lydia, for talking with us today about your
You.
editing job and your writing career life there. Thank you very much. And I'll be sending you a copy of the recording as soon as I get it edited. Thank you very
Awesome.
much and have a
Thank you for
great
having
day.
me. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.